Hello, everyone. Welcome to a longer video from the Powerbomb Project. I am one of your hosts, Daniel, joined by my other two hosts.
It's Berman.
And Chris.
Today, we're going to be talking about the DC Extended Universe. To give a little disclaimer out there, technically, the Batman and Joker aren't DC Extended Universe films, but considering they're the only two films that came out outside of the DCEU, we just figure why not review them. So, this is going to be split into two parts. Part one is going to be the years 2013 to 2020. Part two will be 2021 to right now. So, we have a lot of movies and a TV show to even talk about too. So, without further ado, let's begin with Man of Steel. Now, Man of Steel is an origin story about Superman. This is directed by Zack Snyder. And Superman is played by Henry Cavill in this film. And yeah, overall, I think it is a great film. And I'm not too huge of a fan on the Superman character like that, but I think this film is just a great film. And the only major complaint I can say is that the final battle is really like almost an entire hour. And honestly, they could have cut that crap down by a lot. Based off, just how it ends with Superman ultimately just snapping Zod's neck so he, avoids murdering innocent civilians. And a lot of people disagree with that ending, but I personally like the ending. And I even like the fact that, them creating all the chaos in the city is kind of what led to Batman and Superman disliking each other. I'm going to shit over that movie, don't worry. But I can say I like how this movie kind of led to future events. I feel like it did a really good job with that, and it kind of did a really good job in painting Superman in kind of a different light, or kind of trying to change the Superman character up just a little bit in this adaptation, and that's what I really like about this adaptation. Amy Adams as Lois Lane is fine. They're not going to really die over that, but it's fine. Overall, that's all I could really say. I feel like the Superman we have in this movie, people may argue isn't as human as some of the other Supermen that we've had before. But honestly, I'm kind of okay with that because I feel like this take on the Superman character is kind of intriguing and kind of interesting. Overall, I'm going to give the film an 8 out of 10. I've seen it a good 3 or 4 times in my life since it came out in 2013. And yeah, I think it's a great film. It's not a perfect film, but I definitely watch it again. It is a great film.
Yeah, for me, this movie is pretty fun. I love how they did picture the Superman. I feel like Henry did do a good job portraying him, but he's probably focused on The Witcher right now. But I think it was a pretty great Superman, and it was fun. I loved that they introduced Zod and how the city fight was kind of interesting. It was interesting, and I like the DCEU is more darker than the Marvel, and that's why I feel like I do love more the DCs a lot more sometimes. Is that they're a lot more darker? They're a lot more saying, "Hey, I'm gonna kill someone if I want to," and it's kind of fun to see that they're more that type of way. So to me, Man of Steel was fun. Definitely a good start for the DC franchise, and I definitely give this an 8 for me.
And I'm with the same boat. It's definitely 8. It's not perfect, mind you, because I think one of the dumbest things, and it's kind of minor, it's just the introduction of the beginning of Superman when his father he just lets his father die. Like during that tornado scene, he's just like, no, Clark, you have to let me die. This is for your character growth.
Well, I'm going to defend that real quick, even though you're talking about it. The main reason Superman didn't save his father right then and there was because his father basically wanted to protect his identity from, all the other people that could possibly go after him. So the father did that more to protect his son than anything else. So I'm actually going to kind of defend that right there.
Bro, he's literally Superman. He could have just swept in less than a second. It just dragged him before, and it's the middle of a thunderstorm. No one else is going to see
but that less than a second action can still be exposed. Just like how the Flash, if the Flash runs for less than a millisecond, that can still be exposed.
I suppose so. And then besides that little critique, we were talking about this earlier, Daniel, about the end fight where it was close to almost like 40 minutes. Like that was
Yeah, it
kind of
was like
way too
40.
long.
It was nearly an hour, like ridiculous.
But it was pretty good. And then the only thing that was a bit controversial about the film is Superman kills Zod or Zed. I mean, like at the very end. But I didn't really. He didn't have a choice but to, so people can't like really justify that since he was about to kill like a daughter and a mother, too. That was like a number one thing people were like kind of bitching about when the movie first came out. But it's a solid film. Other than that, it's an 8. It's good.
All right.
Yeah, I do kind
Now-
of defend that
Oh,
because Zod is this type of. Sorry, but Zod, he was a big thing about it was, and that's why I think the big thing about why he killed Zod was because he couldn't control his lasers from his eyes, so he couldn't allow him to do more damage with that. So I think it makes sense that he got killed for that reason.
Yeah, to protect those civilians. But yeah, man. Now we move on to Batman versus Superman. I really want to shit all over this film, and I'm not entirely going to do that. I'm going to shit all over it somewhat. Don't worry, people. But I'm going to be nice, and I'll just say this. This isn't the absolute worst superhero film of all time, but it's pretty bad. Now, I'm going to explain how. The film is 2.5 hours. How long did Batman versus Superman happen in those 2.5 hours? And that's the title of your film, Batman versus Superman. They fought for 7 minutes long. Out of 150 minutes, they fought for 7 minutes. And Batman stopped killing Superman or trying to kill Superman because both of their mothers share the same first name. And to this day, it's still one of the worst and most dumb scenes I think I've ever seen in a movie. Not a superhero movie, in a movie. That scene is ridiculously dumb. But besides that, the whole, resurrection of Zod into Doomsday felt very cheap and very lazy. And, just a little way to get Doomsday in there as a cash grab. And I love Doomsday, but the way they brought Doomsday in was kind of pathetic. And then, this was supposed to be the first time we saw Wonder Woman. But besides Wonder Woman just kind of being a side character, she doesn't really do anything important for the story whatsoever. And it's kind of dumb. And then we go for Batman. We all know Batman's reason for being mad at Superman. But Superman's reason for being mad at Batman is very unclear throughout the entirety of the movie. Oh, he's a vigilante. He fights people in the dark. It seemed very, very lazy, and it made Superman look dumb because he just didn't really know the truth about the Batman, and it made the Batman look oblivious to not knowing the truth about Superman. Just the entire conflict the two were having in the entirety of this film made absolutely no sense. And all the build up we get to that 7-minute fight is so boring. I don't even know where to begin. You got Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, and Jesse Eisenberg is a great actor, but this role was not meant for him whatsoever. This role was definitely meant to go to someone else, and someone probably a bit older as well. I'm not a fan of the younger Lex Luthor thing that they were going for here at all. Just overall, the Ultimate Edition is slightly better, but even then, that's still a bad film. I'm not going to blame Zack Snyder all that much on this one, but I will say there is definitely some blame to be put on him for this film. It's a bad film. You can't really tell me otherwise. I just think it's dog shit. Again, though, not the worst thing you're ever going to watch, but it's pretty bad. Like, there's not one standout actor. There's not one great scene. The whole movie is just stupid, and I'm just not a big fan of Ben Affleck's Batman whatsoever. And I think the suit looks pretty mediocre as well on the Batman. So, yeah, 2.5 hours, and I think that's way too long. This film could have been an hour and a half, 2 hours, and got the same point across. And even then, it shouldn't have been called Batman versus Superman if you're only going to have 7 minutes of them fighting. It should have just been called Dawn of Justice. So overall, I'm going to give the film a 2.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys, but I'm defending this one because I actually really love the movie because of how much it's really interesting. And I know people are going to backlash, and even you guys not really don't like me because I support this movie, but because I really do love it. First thing first is that Batman's reason it was good. I think it made sense. Now, Superman's reason it's actually clear if you just pay attention to it. Pretty much, it's not because he's a vigilante or anything. It's because he's terrorizing people. He's pretty much killing people for just no reason really. For in with with Superman's idea, he just wants to get this stop. He just wants to stop Batman from hurting people. That's pretty much his reason for hating Batman, and that's pretty much how I see this whole thing. It's interesting, and the big thing to me I love about the movie is Lex Luthor. I love that Lex Luthor to me. I just love how funny, how he looks like a teenager. He's always he looks like a teenager guy, but he has this fun aspect to him, and I love how he speaks. He's just like red coats coming, monologues and stuff against the senators when he was in jail, when he was talking to Superman. I think it was just so much fun to talk to with him. And yeah, the Diana or Wonder Woman was not there that much, but I think she's not supposed to be there that much. Now, yes, it took a little longer, but I think it's fun to me. I think that it's trying to build to this whole thing. And the other thing I love too is that Lex Luthor was turning everyone against Superman. And I think that's a cool thing, interesting. And that was the biggest thing about the movie was him turning Superman against his fans, his people, not being hated pretty much now. So that's why I loved it too. Now, there are some parts that I'm like, maybe they should change it, but to me, I think that I loved it. The fight was a great fight. It was short, but here's the defense. You guys watched Godzilla versus Kong, or Godzilla Kong.
Yeah.
That movie is pretty much the exact same thing, with saying that, hey, they team up. They team up at the end. They fought, say, 2 times, and they still been separated the whole entire time. They fought twice for a very short amount of time. Good fights. And then after that, they team up to fight against a big thing, a big mecha. So it's kind of like this to me. It's a verse. Every movie that hints with verses in the name of it acts the exact same way. And I gotta say that perfectly honest to me, and that's why I love the movie, even if of how they set these characters up to be perfectly right. And I think I don't like I like praising it because I love the movie myself. I know people hate it, but I like it because it's fun and it's a smart movie to me. So I actually love the movie. So I actually gotta give this a 7, maybe
All
a
right.
7.5. I said.
Before you go, Chris, I got two responses. Two responses. First, the Godzilla versus Kong critique. At least in Godzilla versus Kong, we got enough Godzilla versus Kong to the point where when they did team up, it was fine because we at least saw them fight for a long enough time. For Batman versus Superman, that bullshit literally had 2 hours of setup for a crappy 7-minute fight that was garbage. And then second one was, yes, I did pay attention to the entire movie. It was terrible, which is why I called it terrible. And when it comes down to Superman, being mad at Batman for killing, well, here's the thing. Batman doesn't kill. And I guess, yes, you could say the same critique about the Robert Pattinson Batman, but you want to know the big difference? That Batman is supposed to be in his young 20s figuring out how to be the Batman. This is literally a fucking 50-year-old Batman. There is no excusing it. There is absolutely zero excusing it.
Well, maybe you could true that, but main thing why he's not is not really main thing is killing. It was the big thing is terrorizing people, making them fear them, making them those called Gotham fear the Batman. And I think that's why he more hates him is because he doesn't like to see people afraid or terrorized by someone just in a mask. And I think that's the biggest thing too. The killing, yes, that's a big thing too. But I think the big thing is the terrorizing of the regular men, regular people in that movie, is what drove Superman to kind of hate him a little bit more for Batman.
All right, Chris, you go ahead.
I'm kind of with you on this too, Daniel, because it's just the fact that it was more of a snooze fest, and if anything, it's very uncharacteristic of Batman. Because literally, the first 5 to 10 minutes of the Batman vs Superman, you can literally see him killing these villains and like literally branding them with a symbol, which is like, wait a minute, that's not a Batman thing to do. And besides that, it was mostly a drag, mostly on Lex Luthor being played by someone so young, which wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but just the way he goes about it, it's just very like awkward. Like you said, he wasn't really fit for this kind of role, and it was kind of lazy bringing back Zod to bring him back.
Yep.
And it's just overall the pacing was just like way too boring for what it was, and then the overall payoff when we finally did get to see the fight, it was cool for 7 minutes, but again, that Martha meme was just too good. So therefore, this movie's very bad and kind of boring. So I'll give it like a 3.
All right. Now we move on to Suicide Squad 2016. I'll admit, when I was 14 years old and this originally came out, I enjoyed it. But I'm not 14 years old anymore. I am old enough to recognize this movie has a lot of flaws. Now, you can say it's an enjoyable experience. You can argue that. But I just want to quickly mention this movie's kind of racist. And I know y'all are thinking, how is that a critique? No. I'm being serious. This movie's actually kind of racist. If you literally look at like the soundtrack the movie has in the beginning of the film, you could see that they kind of have a certain song for, each person. And literally every single song they used for Will Smith was a rap song. And literally one of the rap songs is called Black Skinhead. You cannot tell me that shit isn't intentional. You cannot tell me that at all. This movie is literally racist as shit in that regard. Absolutely. And honestly, it just had so many stereotyping throughout the entire movie that just went under everybody's nose that it's kind of crazy. And then compare Amanda Waller here into later films, and it feels like Amanda Waller is in demo mode as a character. There's not much she really does that's entertaining in this film. And Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie is Harley Quinn, clearly is one of the best things about this film. She blew up because of this role, and rightfully so. Jared Leto as Joker is easily the worst Joker of all time. And second place is very, very far behind. Jared Leto is a terrible actor, and I just have to say that. Now, another thing I'm going to have to say is that this team is just really unlikable outside of maybe Diablo, Boomerang, Harley Quinn, and Deadshot. But Deadshot isn't even comic book accurate whatsoever. And not that it needs to be, because I enjoy when things don't try to follow the comics, but this is literally just a slap in the face to the character. Like, it's kind of disrespect. And Enchantress was just a boring villain. I couldn't care. And plus, some of the effects during the fights just have not aged well whatsoever. It's not the worst film you ever watch. It's not even a terrible film, but it's bad. It's just a bad film. I'm just going to call it that. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm sorry again. I'm going Black Sheep again. This is probably one of my top 3 favorite movies because I really love how fun is it, and I just loved all the characters were fun to watch. Killer Croc was very fun. Deadshot was good, and I did love that every one of them had a small freeze frame saying who are they and what are their special things. Boomerang was fun. Harley Quinn was great. And yeah, there was one character who I think his name is Slip. I think it's funny. It was Slipknot. He was a mediocre character who just got killed off in 10 seconds, which is, I think just shows off something. But I think that every single character is fun. Even Colonel Flag was a fun character to watch. The villain wasn't the biggest thing, but I think the villain was interesting at the same time. Even her brother, I don't know even his name, but her brother was interesting. That there was 2 villains the whole time. but I think it was fun to watch. I loved Diablo in general. I think he's probably one of my favorites of there. I loved how like he was. His story is so sad, but it's so interesting that he's talking about. I love the bar scene. Freaking, I love it. The Colonel Flag talking like this was fun. I think the whole movie was fun as hell. There was maybe like tiny parts that I was like, I don't like that much, but I loved it. Even the Joker. I actually love Jared Leto. Jared Leto in general is just love. That's why I love him in Morbius, and why I love Jared Leto in a lot of other movies is because he's fun to watch. And I think he was not that bad of a Joker. He's not the worst, but to me, he was up there as a good Joker. He was a fun to watch, and I think I'm happy to see him more if he comes back. I'm okay with it. I love the movie. It's probably definitely. I said it again. One of my top three. I have the movie. I watch it maybe every month once. I still love it. I'm always gonna give this an 8.
Berman, before I continue, are you being serious with Jared Leto being a good Joker?
Yes.
Are you being serious?
I'm not joking. I was not joking the whole time. I
You
like
can
the
defend
Joker.
Morbius, but I'm not. We're not letting you defend that.
I like the Joker. To me, the Joker is funny. He's not. He was not like a big spotlight character, but I still loved how he was acting. He's fun, interesting. He's a gang member Joker. It's interesting. It's kind of fun to watch. So that's why I liked it. So
Berman, he's a gamer Joker. He got the tattoos on his face. He listened to 21 Pilots. Doesn't that just run through your head, man? Just thinking, man, this Joker cringe.
no. I should. The whole time I saw Joker, I was like, "Ooh, let's see what happens next." I love a lot of the scenes of Joker. It made me laugh a lot, and it just made me.
Didn't Jared Leto send a dead bat to someone's house just to prepare for the Joker film? Joker.
But anyways, back to the film. I I don't I don't necessarily think it's one of the worst DC projects, but this movie was very sloppy just due to the fact that it was made by two different directors. And initially, that bar scene was probably like one of my favorite scenes too, Merman. But there was many lines that were cut off that kind of made the characters more relatable and kind of showed off like their interests. Like for instance, there was supposed to be a scene where Diablo was kind of talking more in depth of how he got his powers and what have you. But just the one thing is that the film itself it goes way too fast. Like for my taste, like it's just like hurry up, we just got to get through this crap, and then just many of the characters were kind of just meh. I mean, I enjoyed Harley Quinn, Boomerang, and Killer Croc, for instance. Like it's for what it is, it's just like a dumb like popcorn film. So I'm not gonna knock it too hard, but it's not very strong in that regard. So if anything, I'll just give it like a 5. It's all right. It's not the worst thing, but it's okay. But real
Yeah,
quick,
and I do guys.
oh no, go ahead,
Well,
Berman.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that I did love there in a movie. I guess I have a DVD set that's like a deluxe edition, and there's 2 discs in there. One that's a theater version, and one that's not. The the not theater version is way better because you actually hear a lot more about Diablo than anything else. You hear a lot more background on Diablo and a lot more background on other characters. Funny enough, and if you want to watch that one because that gives you a lot more in depth look on Diablo, and that's why I love. It's why a good thing I loved about that. And the bar scene was fun as well. I loved the what's it called Harley serving drinks to every single person. It was just fun to talk to see them talk like in like normal people. Just say that they're just normal people, just regular people that can get harmed and have really bad things happen in your life. So that's why I love the movie too.
All right. Now I move on to the next movie, which would be Wonder Woman. Okay, this might surprise everybody. This is one of my favorite DC Extended Universe films. I think it is an amazing film, and I love the World War I setting. I love the color grading of this film. It just looks fantastic, and it's not too colorful to the point where it hurts the eyes, like a future Wonder Woman sequel we're going to get to. But it doesn't look too gray and dull like some of the previous films we've talked about, like BvS and Suicide Squad. I think this film looks really damn good. And the acting in this movie is just probably the best out of the 4 films we've talked about so far, without a doubt. And, Gal as Wonder Woman really, really delivers big time in this film, more than anything else, in my personal opinion. This is Gal's best performance as the character, and this movie really helped me convince her as Wonder Woman. You know, it got me sold on it. Overall, BvS didn't really allow me to see much of her, and I'm glad that we got to see more of her in this film. And you know, I thought Ares, the whole story involving Ares as a villain was cool. And you know, you could argue there's a few moments of cheesiness here and there, but that's kind of the point, because you know, Wonder Woman doesn't really know much about the world outside of, you know, her world, Amazon and all that. And it just makes sense. And I really like this film a lot. It's pure, it's kind of wholesome, it has a great action, and there aren't really too many things I can complain about. Is this a perfect film? No. But honestly, I can confidently say I think it's an absolutely great film, and definitely one of the better DCEU projects of them all. Overall, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10.
Yes, and I actually will agree on this one. I do love this movie. I love the World War II or one back. I think it's two. Isn't that correct?
It's one.
One.
Sorry to interrupt. It's one.
All right, so thank you. World War One. Backup line. I love any movie that relates to either World War One or World War Two. I love to watch, and this one was another one of the same. I love seeing the World War One showing over, and it's always funny to me. Like, she was walking in public with a sword and stuff, like trying to hide stuff, which she was like, I don't know why I need to hide these stuff, people. Like, and it's always interesting. I love how they show these things that she just doesn't know what's happening outside her of her island. So I really do love the movie. The villains were fun. Ares was a great character. Always loved seeing him, and I think Ares is a great movie up there as one of my favorites. Definitely, I would give this 9 for me.
Yep, same here. Not only that the fact that Wonder Woman is such a good job, like just her with the other soldiers, I forget their names too. Like, it's not just mainly focused on her. It's like her and her comrades going to World War II, just kind of just kicking ass. And one thing surprisingly, like most of these DC problems have or with the relationships, mind you, with the superheroes, but I wasn't actually bothered up by Diana and her love interest because it was actually pretty believable, because you spend like a lot of time of these characters actually get to know each other, and it's not like forced how you see other like relationships, which is another plus, which I really enjoyed, because it just made it more human. It was probably one of the greatest things I've seen. However, it's not flawed. I mean, it is flawed, my mistake, just due to the fact that you can say that Ares, the main villain, was kind of like cheesy at the end, where the only reason why Wonder Woman kind of beat him in the first place is because of the power of friendship. And you just talk to the Nazis, and they all randomly change their minds because violence is no good. But I'm not gonna just fault the whole movie just because of that dumb thing. That's the only fault I have with the movie. But overall, the characters are great. Wonder Woman was great. Everything was just, it was an excellent movie. It's one of my favorite DCU projects of recent memory. So I'm gonna give it a 9.
I think that critique is fair about Wonder Woman. Like, the only major issue it could possibly have is probably following completely through on the message it tried to follow through. But yeah, like you said, I think it's honestly one of the better relationships that we see in superhero films in general, not even just DC. But it gets ruined in the second film. We'll explain why later. But yeah, now we move on to a tragedy. So, Josstice League 2017. We're going to call this Josstice League. Originally, this was supposed to be directed by Zack Snyder, but unfortunately, one of Zack Snyder's daughters at 20 years old committed suicide. And because of that, he stepped down from the project. And in place, we got the guy who directed the first two Avengers films, Joss Whedon. But he decided to take the Flash, and instead of making him look like a hero in the Snyder Cut, he made him look like a buffoon and an idiot. And he just had him save 5 random civilians instead of the entire world. Massive downgrade. Cyborg in the original went from being one of the most important characters in the entire film to barely being in it at all because of Joss Whedon's racism towards Cyborg. And then Wonder Woman gained sexualized throughout the entire film when she's the only woman on the entire team. You have the Flash sexualizing her, a Batman sexualizing her, Aquaman flirting with her. Like, you just have every guy in the film try to get with her in some way, and it looks ridiculous and stupid. And then when you had Superman beat all of them 5-on-1 in less than 2 minutes, it basically rendered every member on the team completely useless. And on top of that, you had Superman beat the final boss all by himself. And that shit's so stupid. And they even took out Darkseid of the film, which, makes no sense because Darkseid is literally the main villain's motivation in the Justice League. It makes zero sense. And yeah, so you have racism with Cyborg. You have the director also being a sexist when it comes to Wonder Woman. So is there anything that he's not? Nope. Joss Whedon is a piece of shit, and this film is equally as shitty as him. Overall, I'm giving it a 2 out of 10. The color grading of this film looks disgustingly bad. And, Superman, how they edited his mustache out the film became a meme for a reason. The whole film looks like absolute flat-out dog shit, and I'm kind of glad the studio lost money making this film rather than profiting, because it's terrible and it deserves no money.
I am sorry, but I do kind of like this film, and I know it's a lot sexualized, but usually in these films, I do forget about that stuff until I finish the film, and then I kind of hear that's crap. But when I first watched this film, I really did like it. It was not that bad. It was kind of understandable because I feel like people, even Wonder Woman had a lot of these sexualization in the movie, like a little bit. There's a good amount of characters who really love sexualized Wonder Woman in the movie, and her own movie, same time. So I just feel like it's the same thing in the first one, in Wonder Woman movie. But even though it was fun, I liked how they got all these characters to how they got all these characters got introduced. Just Ben Affleck just threw a batarang at him, and just everything clicks in his head. It was kind of fun. I did like it. Don't get me wrong, it's not without its flaws. Again, there's a lot of things that are a little too much weight and stuff, but I still loved how fun it was. The villain Steppenwolf, I think it was perfectly fine. Don't get me wrong, Darkseid would be fun, but I think it made sense to me that they would save him for a bigger movie later, when he was going to be fighting against Darkseid. Would be like Josstice League Apocalypse, probably the next movie. My guess will be fighting against Darkseid. It makes sense, and that's what I feel like. That's why Steppenwolf would be there. And I think Steppenwolf was not a bad character. He was brutal, big axe, killing people, and I think it was not that bad of a character. Every character, sure, don't get me wrong, Barry Allen didn't do a lot, but I think it was still pretty okay. The end was fun. I think the thing that was made me laugh the most was the part right at the end where I think it was Bruce Wayne and Kent was like helping his mom move back into his home, and say, "How do you get your house? How do you get the house back from the bank?" And Bruce said, "I just bought the bank." And it's very funny. It makes sense because he's a rich man. He just doesn't. It's very funny. It makes me laugh. That scene always makes me laugh when I heard it. I repeated it so many times. Very funny. I did love the extra credits scene, or the scene where it's like Superman versus Flash. Whoever is faster would buy a brunch. It's an inside joke for the movie that they don't like. Barry Allen doesn't like people talking about brunch. So I really loved the movie. To me, and then after that, I heard a lot of crap, but I still kind of like the movie because it's fun and it's a good watch. So I give this, to me, a 5.5.
All right. Honestly, this is what I'll say. I'm not gonna argue with that too much, but I will say Wonder Woman was not sexualized in her own film. Yes, she fell in love, but it wasn't like Justice League where they were like literally having her flirt with every single guy in the fucking team, And
No,
plus,
but a lot of people in that movie was looking at her. So in her own movie, everyone was looking at her like more sexual.
I guess it could. I guess, but we all knew like Wonder Woman could like just beat the shit out of them, so it didn't really feel like as big of a deal. That's just my whole opinion.
It's things fair.
So All right, Chris, what's your opinion?
I'm gonna say that it's not. You can't say it's terrible, Daniel, because at least for the first half of the film, it's actually pretty good. And that's the only majority thing that Zack Snyder filmed before, unfortunately, his daughter passed away. And for the fact, yeah, I'll agree with you on that. Like Wonder Woman's kind of like just more of a sex object than anything in this movie, but it's not too terrible. Seeing that the fact that there's some fun characters. Like I like Flash's performance of Barry. He was probably like the sole reason why I could sit through this because him and his funny interactions with Batman were always a great time. He was just a lovable idiot, but because of the controversy shit that he's been up to as of recently, we're probably not going to see him soon. But overall, Justice League isn't terrible. It's just very mediocre. So at that rate, I'm just gonna give it a 4 to not kind of drag it on too long. I wouldn't personally.
That's
What's up?
that's basically the average then, 2, 5.5, 4.
Yeah, because I can't say it was miserable. Because again, like I said before, the first half of the film is pretty damn good, up until the other director takes over, where it kind of just goes into shit. And then the movie is kind of boring. Like it's just ugly the way it's like filmed. It's like too many grays, and it's just like. And then they pretty much need Superman at the end. So, like you said before, it kind of just the Justice League were a joke at this point. So if it wasn't for Superman, they would have just got obliterated. So it's just
They're
like
joking their own film.
exactly. So that's all I can really say about this film.
So, all right. Now that is 5 movies down. We have 5 more for this part. Next, we're going to talk about Aquaman. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Who doesn't love Aquaman? All right. Well, we might not love Aquaman, but that doesn't mean we hate it either, people. This is my personal opinion. Okay, I think the film is decent. There's definitely some fun to be had with this film, and Jason Momoa as was it Aquaman himself. It's fun. I can't even lie. And seeing some of the Atlantis and all that, it's cool. It's quite cool. I can't really complain about this movie too much. Outside, there was quite a bit of cheesiness and goofiness in the film, like the octopus playing the drums felt like some Little Mermaid shit. And honestly, I feel like they could have utilized William Dafoe more because he's such a great actor, but the role he was playing wasn't really all that eventful, so I get it. I could complain about Amber Heard all day, but we're not going to make this a political video. And I wish we had more of Black Manta, but I get it. They're trying to have him be more of a villain later. My main complaints of this film as well is that the villain in this film, he's not terrible, but he's just kind of forgettable. Like, he's just an average villain. You can't really say much more than that. Overall, I think it's fine. I'm going to give this film a 6 out of 10. It's
All right.
okay.
And surprisingly, it was a sleeper hit because, like, for the longest time, I kind of refused to see this movie, just seeing like it looked very generic. But I was surprisingly it was taken back because just like like the old school Transformer movies with like Michael Bay, it was just like dumb popcorn film. Like it's just simple, it gets to the point. It's very actiony, so if you're in that kind of mood where you just kind of watch just like shit happens and cinematics just going back and forth, this is definitely your movie. But if you're kind of like expecting like anything too serious with like characters like interacting with each other or whatnot, you're not really gonna get that. And then Aquaman's whole relationship with his like wife or girlfriend or whatever, mind you, was kind of forgettable. But William Dafoe was kind of great too, as being his mentor. And of course, you can't forget like the octopus playing the drums, the awesome vehicles that you have of like the fucking whale people, kind of just like, or I'm sorry, the whales turning into like machines that the people can use. But the only thing I wish they would add more into this movie is just like in the brief beginning, they kind of go into detail of like the other civilizations in the water. But I get it, you're not going to fit it in for what this movie is. But if there is a sequel, well, it's planning to be released. I don't know. Since DC is kind of going through new changes right now, we probably won't see it. But for the film itself, I'll give it a 6 because I wasn't bored at all. It was fun. It just needed to be what it needed to be. It was just a cool introduction to Aquaman. It's badass. It's fun. Go on and watch it because I'll definitely give this a 6 too.
Yeah, to me, this movie is fun. I actually loved I think Jason Momoa is a perfect 100% a perfect Aquaman. He acts and looks part. And I did love the story background to like how he got to his dad there. It was nice. It's kind of sad too, but it was nice to kind of hear that just background. The thing I loved too was the kind of this is my thing too, is the fight style. Like I kind of love the spinning of his trident, making a weird water shield. I just love that. It looks so freaking cool, and just I think all the animations with water was great to see. And I did love Black Manta was great. It was a nice side. It's a side character, but I think he was great to push in there. And definitely he's probably gonna pop up in the next movie because he is the main villain. Oh well, yeah, second main villain of Aquaman. And then the main villain is his brother, or mainly Ocean Master, which is actually Aquaman's nemesis. It makes sense that he would be in there because that's Aquaman's nemesis in the comics and most of the stuff. So I think it was kind of forgettable. He was not like a big evil guy. He was just greedy. He was power hungry. I'll call it more. He was never like an evil guy like any of all the other characters in these guys, but he was just more power hungry. He just didn't want anyone to take his throne. That's pretty much how I think about it. I mean, it was fun. I loved the water scene. I think the war against the other people against like all the other water beasts were freaking cool. The weird monsters in the deep dark were great too. Seeing his mom back is fun, and it was good. I think the one part I did love was his mom reunited with his dad, and I think that's a cool part. I did love to see a nice relationship with there. The movie is great. To me, it's fun. I can't wait to see when they pop up with Aquaman 2. I would definitely give this a 6.5.
All right, now we move on to Shazam. This movie also kind of suffers from having a forgettable villain, but the villain isn't bad in this film at all. Like, the villain's fine. But the star of the show, obviously, is Shazam himself. And, seeing this honestly really good story about, Shazam, learning how to really accept a family or be a part of a family, and he kind of learns some truths that, he has kind of been dodging for a long time. And, these truths really hit once, you find out some of these truths. And the movie's just really fun. It's really funny. And it looks really good as well. So does the action. But overall, I just have to say that the story really surprised me in terms of how good it actually turned out to be. This is definitely one of DC's better films in the regard of storytelling and comedy, for sure. Overall, I think this is just kind of a really, really good movie in terms of just telling that story. And, I think all the acting in this film is actually great. There isn't really many scenes in here at all where I think, oh, this person's underperforming, or oh, this is underperforming. I never really have that thought in the back of my head for the majority of this film. I never have that at all. So, yeah, it sounds like I think this film is fantastic. Yeah. It's not, but I think it is a really good film. Overall, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but I didn't really like it that much. I watched it first time, didn't really like it. I watched it the second time pretty recently, and I grown a little. Still don't like it, but it's not that bad at the same time. I'm like, I'm always half and half because the whole half of the movie really boring to me. Like there's some interesting parts that was funny, but way too much. It's just too much cringe. I just don't like a lot of cringe in a lot of movies, and just too much. But the other half of the movie, pretty fun. I loved the fight scene. The fight scenes with the 7 deadly sins were fun. The sharing of his powers were fun. The villain was great. But it was just feel like to me it was just way too money. I know he's trying to find his powers, and he's a teenager. It makes sense, but still like a little bit too much like comedy to me, or just a little too much cringe aspects to everything. But I know it's a kind of like a fantasy dream. Like, just think, everyone wants to think, hey, what if I'm 10. I wonder when I'm 21, what can I do? that's pretty much what I would think this movie is kind of showing a lot of people. And bad examples, but good examples. It's not that bad, but it's still not my favorite. I'm just going to give it a 5 for me.
Berman, that is the most hurtful thing you could say about Shazam. How could you? That movie isn't cringe. It's
No,
just
it's
a
true.
kid. Why? It's just a kid living his
I
dream.
just didn't like it.
But
I know.
why?
I just don't feel. It just doesn't. It's not my type of movie, and it just doesn't look good. It didn't feel. It didn't. I just felt like it was just way too much. Way too many cringy moments and stuff. I just didn't really care that much.
But it's only a little montage when Shazam gets with his friend because he lives in an orphanage and all of his buddies are just trying to figure out like what he can do. It's only 10 minutes of it.
Yeah,
But you can't
I think
fault
it's a
that.
great
That's not the only.
story.
That's not the only things that are cringy to me.
But did you feel any emotion with his mom and like the reveal at the end and all of his brothers and sisters?
No, because the whole time I saw this, I was like, I know why she left him. It makes sense because of how it works. The whole time I felt like, oh, that makes sense. I know why he left him. So I was not going to be surprised when I saw that.
Oh, but you liked it though, right, Berman? You tell me you liked it at least.
What?
You liked the movie at least, right, dude?
I liked half the movie. That's all I said. I liked half the movie. I hated the other half of the movie.
But this is the only movie where the villain actually has the balls to kill people, and then they show it in the movie. For I've seen this entire DCU thing that's happening.
It is true. The villain. I said off the bat. I didn't give any shit to the villain. I love that. The villain was great. I just think everything else, not my thing. I was like, that's why I say half and half for me. I'm not. I liked half the movie, and I disliked the other half of the movie.
If I may ask, was it what you found corny or cringe? Some of the little children, like the adopted siblings, is that what you kind of found cringe?
No, it was more what he was doing with his powers.
Oh, okay, I see. You felt like it was just all kind of like a waste of time, I guess you could say.
To me, yes, I know it makes sense. Like, hey, he's a kid; he can do whatever he wants because he's an adult. But it's like a little bit too much you could do. Like, you should be more like practicing your crap than just trying to use your stuff to get in bad trouble. I just feel like, and it's just not my. It's just to me, it's just corny and it's cringy when I see that, and it really encourages underage drinking with how they show that stuff.
Well, you're cool if you underage drink. You heard
Wait, that's a problem with the film?
Yes. There's a part where Shazam and the kid in crutches went to a convenience store and buy beer.
Oh no, that, but I mean, like, is that like actually like one of the reasons you dislike the film?
Kind of, a little bit. That's like it's a tiny, very tiny critique.
Yeah.
I just kind of didn't like to see that like they push like the underage drinking. That's my thing most of the time.
I don't think they were trying to go for that. I just think they were trying to portray the idea that they're just kind of irresponsible with their powers in the beginning. I think that's what they were trying to aim for more than anything else.
Yeah, I understand that. I just feel like it's just that's how I feel the whole that specific scene.
Yeah, but I can respect the Berman. But overall, just to get back in topic, the movie I enjoyed it quite a bit. It was a fun, entertaining ride. It was slightly above Aquaman, so I'll just give it like a 7.
Okay, now we move on to, I think this next film, I would be pretty surprised if we all don't agree on this one. Joker 2019. Man, what can I say that hasn't been said about this film? Everybody loves this film. This is like the one DC film that's come out in the past 10 years that everyone can agree on is amazing. And I think it's amazing too. Just the acting from Phoenix as Joker is just so goddamn good. And you can try to compare it to other Jokers all you want, but I see this as a different kind of Joker. This is the first time in a movie where they're kind of trying to attempt to give Joker some kind of origin story. And I love the adaptation or the idea that Joker is kind of insane, and how his family thought that he had some relation to Bruce Wayne, and that kind of started the hatred he had towards Bruce Wayne. And I really love that detail. of their rivalry. I think if that would have continued out, that would have been really cool. And it seems like it's going to a little bit since there's a Joker 2 coming out, and we'll definitely be reviewing that when it drops. So, yeah, I think just all the scenes in this film really have your attention because the story just is so goddamn good. And yeah, I can't really complain too much about the film. I guess if I do have any issue with it, which I guess it very much comes down to this just kind of not being like, the first choice in my mind when it comes to, replay value. And not every movie needs replay value. Like The Shining is one of my favorite films of all time. And honestly, I don't think the replay value is too crazy on that, if we're being honest. Replay value isn't everything, but I feel like there isn't that much there when it comes to Joker. It's like you've seen it once and you kind of get it, but it is an amazing film. Overall, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, and for me, I probably just say the same and maybe higher because to me, this is probably number one out of one of my really number one favorite movie of all time. When I first watched it, I watched it with my family. My family didn't really care about it, but they did expect that it was a really good movie. I just fucking love the movie. I have a screen. I have the screen of Joker. My wallpaper is Joker. I just love the movie. It was fun. It was brutal the same way. How all the storyline. How he was really insane. He was thinking he was getting beat up by so many people because he's a clown. It was just brutal. It was very dark, but it was the right amount of dark. And Joaquin Phoenix did the best acting of the world, man. He did get awards from that. That's a good thing. But like he did his heart and soul in that movie, and I think he did a great job. And I can't stop saying anything about this. The end when he insulted, he was instead a riot and made everyone love him. It was freaking fun as hell. I loved that he just killed someone like in TV, just killed just shot a pistol and pistoled someone. It was funny as hell and just so brutal at the same time, like in front of everyone. And I just feel like it was great. And you do see, I love that too. They show a small Easter egg that when Bruce Wayne got his parents killed, Bruce Wayne's parents got killed. It showed in that movie, which is really cool. I think that's interesting too. So I do love this movie. I'm gonna give this a probably 9.5 for me.
This is probably going to be one of my favorite films out of this whole thing, not just for DCU, but before we even get started, it's just the most realistic like depiction of the Joker. Like it's not too cartoony and it goes head to head with Heath Ledger's Joker, like from the Batman. And I know it's a really high praise, but from start to finish, I wasn't really bored whatsoever. I was intrigued about Joker, and it's kind of sad too because he was just a guy just down on his luck, going through like mental health issues, like they were showing off in the movie. Like he tried his best to get better by going through like social case workers, but eventually, the society, I know it's a joke in the movie, but it kind of gave up on him. And also too, I'm not going to spoil it, but like the twist at the end where it kind of leads Jokers, like it took me like two rewatches to finally get like, oh my fucking god, this guy is even more crazier than I could possibly imagine. And it's just
Oh, you can
building up.
spoil it.
Can I?
Yeah, these movies are years old. If
Okay,
people are
cool.
watching this film without watching if people are watching this video without watching the films themselves, you guys are getting spoiled. That's that.
All right, bet. So, just for clarification, in the beginning of the movie, it's implied that Joker is like, well, actually, no, like somewhere in the middle where Joker's kind of getting his life back together, and he meets like this lady in this apartment, and he's like, "Oh, I'm finally building a relationship. Like things are finally gonna go well for me." But as it turns out, like towards the third act, before like the riots begin, before Joker goes insane because of all the bad things that's happened with him and his mother dying, it turns out like that girlfriend was exactly in his imagination. Like none of that was real whatsoever, which is insane. Seeing that the fact that the whole time I thought like, oh, he finally found someone to take care of him, but it's revealed because he goes into this woman's apartment and she is absolutely terrified with the Joker just like kind of, talking to her and her daughter, and he's like, I don't know who you are. Please leave this apartment. And just him doing the smile, like, that's it. I have nothing. Society has nothing to give me. it's time to go all full out Joker mode. And just it's just crazy to think that like this movie was a bit controversial when it was released because people were like comparing it to like the incel movement that was going on, which is really fucking stupid to begin with the whole drama thing. And then they're getting like police officers because of unfortunately like a last mass shooting for a different type of Batman movie that did happen. But don't let it discourage you. This movie is literally perfection. It's getting a 10. It's good. Go watch it.
All right. See, that one I figured we were all going to agree on.
Yeah.
Now let's continue disagreeing. Next movie, Birds of Prey. This isn't the worst film in this extended universe. Some people may say it is, and if you think it is, that's honestly fine. But it is really bad. But I can't say it's horrible. I can't really say it's dog shit. It's pretty bad, but it's not that, you know, because you still got a bit of fun here and there with Harley Quinn. It's just that all the side characters in Birds of Prey don't really do anything for anyone, especially me. And after you're done with this film, you're going to feel like your time was wasted more than, you know, you had fun with it. And I'm just going to give it a 3 out of 10. I think I can't really waste too much time talking about it, and I don't really want to because we have a lot of other stuff to talk about, and this film just isn't really very eventful in my eyes.
Yeah, same for me. I'm not going to talk that much. I just say that probably the best part of the movie was probably just Harley Quinn. That's the only part that was probably the good part of it. That's all. So I'll give this a 2.5.
And yeah, with you, this movie's kind of dog shit. Just the fact that it advertised Harley Quinn supposedly, but the majority of the movie is just this little girl who gets involved because she steals like a jewelry heist from. No, she steals a jewel from Harley Quinn, and then the story's mostly focused on her, which is kind of like the worst thing. Like I understand what you mean, Berman, but you found some things such damn cringe, but like this movie doubles that just for the fact that it was mostly focused on this little girl, so it was unwatchable. So I'm gonna give it a 1 because it's cringe.
Wonder Woman 84, the 10th film we're talking about in all of this. And it's a shame. I was looking forward to this film quite a bit after the first film, but I don't know what happened here. It just, you know, hit the shitter. This whole film just hit the shitter. It's just not good at all. And, you know, you kind of ruined some of the great things from the first film, like, you know, the romance between Diana and, you know, her love interest. And the main villains of the film, even though you can argue they're good actors, it's just the villains of the film were terrible. And the message of the film as a whole was just really fucking stupid. And, you know, I'm not going to talk too much about it. But, oh, yeah, be careful what you wish for. Very fucking stupid. But 2.5 hours, it's just a waste of time. It actually failed to break the budget at the box office. The editing for Cheetah was just absolutely terrible. And, you know, the other villain, Maxwell Lord, I think it was, just really bad. This film is really bad. Patty Jenkins, how do you go from the first film being as great as it was to this film being as terrible as it was? It really confuses me. Overall, I'm giving this a 2 out of 10. If I'm being perfectly honest, out of all 10 films that we've talked about today, I might have shat on BvS and Josstice League quite a bit. And yes, those are really bad. But I think the worst of them all goes to Wonder Woman 84 so far. And that's probably the worst out of all the DCEU films that we're going to talk about. It's honestly just really bad.
Yeah, I don't want to spend that much time, but it was very bad too. It was really, I couldn't watch it. I was, every time I wanted to watch it, I watched it twice. Not a good idea. Every time I fell asleep in the middle of the episode, middle of the movie, and I was just like, I couldn't watch this crap. The only thing was okay about it was the golden suit of armor. Though it looked pretty cool, but Jesus Christ, everything else was just way too boring. It was not fun. So I gotta give this like a 1.5.
And yeah, I'm with you. This is probably outside of the worst DCU movies. Like I may have shit on, Birds of Prey, but this is actually disappointing because funny enough, it was the same director who made the first movie too. And it just sucked overall because all the character growth you got from Diana goes back to square one. Like for one, for some strange reason, like every single guy in this film was either portrayed to be evil, mind you, or they're just like a piece of shit. There's no good intent, and Diana just hated every single man that she ever interacted with. And I'm like, that's not you. Like you grew through that. You proved as a character. Like what's happening, and also too, the one thing I had a complaint with is with Cheetah. Like according to the movie, everyone gets one wish, correct? But Cheetah got two, in fact. And I'm like, wait a minute, you can't fucking do that. You just said it in your own movie that only one person can get one wish. But fuck it, I guess you can make your own wishes. It's fine. It doesn't matter. Like it's so boring. It's a waste of time. And then also too, Cheetah as a character was very boring and very mid. It was just kind of like, why are you here? Why do you hate Diana? Like throughout the whole movie, you just wanted to be like her, and I'm just gonna be super evil because you want to get rid of my power. And then Diana too, just making that wish to bring back her old boyfriend back to life. It was just like, I gotta do what I gotta do. And then just the fight scene. Oh, and then one more thing too, before we go on too long. Cheetah totally fucking died in that fight scene with Wonder Woman when she got electrocuted to death. You can't tell me that otherwise. So this movie sucks. It's getting a 1 out of 10.
Terrible acting, terrible story, terrible writing, terrible message, terrible everything, pretty much. I don't know why I gave it a 2. It's really bad, but I'm going to be nice and stick with a 2 because I think there are worse films out there. Somehow there are worse films out there. But yeah. All right, and this will be it for part 1. If you guys will be tuning in for part 2, there will be no intro. Just continue from this video. All right, take it easy, y'all. Bye.